we had Carlene Reed, who's a herbalist, and she was on talking to us about how to develop our health through our diet. And that was such an exciting program for those of you who caught it. You can reach her at earthelementals.com. But now we have Frank Coppola, great man, great friend, and he is come on today to talk to us about how to maintain our focus. We call this segment Fixing Our Focus. And so Frank is going to talk to us about, ways that we can do that, 7 things that we can use to do that. And so without any further ado, we are going to welcome him. Also, after this, we have Chef Via Melissa. She's going to be giving us some food remedies that we can use in our, to make healthy foods and really be able to be creative in the kitchen. So you don't want to miss that as well. So we're going to have an exciting time today. So now I'm going to turn it over to Frank Coppola.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. Philip, thank you so much for inviting me.
Anytime.
I so appreciate it. Well, today we're going to be talking about focus. I call it focus for life, but focus in general. And ask yourself, do you have any issues around focus? Do you find yourself being distracted in some way, shape, or form? Probably yes. But there are certain situations, for example, in business, the number one issue for people that have problems in business is focus. The number 2 is procrastination, which is all part of focus. So let me give you a little bit of my background and give you a little bit of what happened to me as I grew up, my personal experiences, to just kind of tell you how I came to be someone that understands a good deal about focus. I grew up in a restaurant, and if you've ever been in a restaurant, when it gets busy, you've got to be in about 3 or 4 different places simultaneously. But it was always interesting because when it came time to cook the food, or in many cases or make a pizza, because I grew up in an Italian restaurant, my father, who was distracted all the time, but when he was cooking, was very, very focused and got everything done on time. And people really enjoyed the food. And the same thing with my mother, because she was the one that made the pizza. So together, they had this very successful restaurant, but they were able to really keep focused. I work in business now, and I see a lot of people that I go in and I help them, and you will find that they start on one thing, and then they go to something else, and then they go to something else. And they keep on moving from one area to another because they think that's the magic bullet that's going to make them a lot of money, as opposed to staying focused. And when you stay focused, you're able to get passionate, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. It's not, let's get passionate and then I'll get focused. It's actually the other way around. When I grew up in the restaurant, there was music around there. I spent my time when I was upstairs, because we owned the building, growing up on television, and movies were across the street from the theater. So I had this cultural experience of being around people, but also being around a lot of arts, for lack of a better term, music, movies, television. By the time I got to school, though I was told I had a very high IQ, I just could not get good grades because I was all over the place. And it wasn't until I got into my, I don't know, maybe 30s that I found out that I had attention deficit disorder, which also made me realize was why I wasn't able to stay focused. So I realized I better learn about this thing called focus. So I went into a lot of study. I learned to become a board certified ADD coach, but I also work with people in business to help them really stay concentrated and be able to complete the task that they say they want to get done. And by doing so, they consistently grow their business. And it's not unusual for people to double their income in less than 6 or 7 months because they're able to learn the task or the skill of focus, because there is a skill.
Mhm.
So I'm going to take you on a couple of questions and have you think about these. I am going to be looking down at my notes, so pardon me if you see that.
That's
So
okay.
let me ask you something, Philip, because
Hmm.
I can see you looking at me and I'm getting very nervous. No. So one of the things you want to ask yourself is my energy well spent? So just take a look at yourself and be completely honest about how you use your time and
Hmm.
ask yourself every day, am I spending my time wisely?
Wow.
I always say, is this a good use of my time?
Hmm.
If the answer is no, then you need to redirect your efforts. You need to be thinking about something else. If something is moving you closer to what your goal is and what your objective is,
Hmm.
get back to something that will. And here are some things to consider. One, look at the things you work on each day.
Hmm.
Determine which items should be highest priority
Hmm.
and those that are going to move you further down the list are going to move you further closer to your goal. You might have to stop and reevaluate what you're doing several times during the week, which is perfectly fine. But you want to use these evaluations to protect your schedule from unnecessary distractions. For
Right.
example, I usually find that when it comes to tax season, people try to avoid sitting down with the accountant because it's such a stress on them that they will create all kinds of distractions. Like I gotta take all my pencils and sharpen all my pencils because you never know when I'm gonna have to do the next bid. And I have to have a sharp pencil as opposed to using a computer,
I
right?
never know when I'm going to need a pencil, really,
You never know when I'm gonna need a pencil. Or I gotta get that screwdriver for the chair that's gonna break in 6 years.
So
Right.
is that like a coping mechanism because you don't want to do what's important and just like let me fill my time with something that will distract me from whatever it is that needs focus that you want to avoid.
Yes, and in most of the time it's unconscious. So you have to bring awareness to what you're doing. You have
You know what what I got from that question though, what I started thinking about is busy is not necessarily productive. So you
True.
have to kind of measure really you're talking about measuring your time, like what am I spending time on and is it going to be profitable to my end game?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you have to, the other side of it is to say, what am I doing right now in terms of, is this a good business for me to be in? Is this a
Wow.
good place for me to be doing the things I want to be doing? Or am
Hmm.
I just going along for the ride because I haven't really figured out what is it that I would like to be doing?
Right.
And I see this all the time in relationships. People wind up getting involved in relationships because it's convenient, and then they wake up like 6 years later and go like, what did I do? You know? So because not without have that sense of consciousness,
Hmm.
life can really spin out of control. And it's unconscious. You're not even aware of it most of the time.
So half the deal is being conscious of being unconscious. It's like,
Yes. Yes.
why am I doing this? Is this necessary and what am I avoiding?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And the other question I really love is this a good use of my time? Are the people that I'm spending my time with helping me to get whatever my goal is? And, people have goals. People want to be able to accomplish things in their life, whether it's in school, whether you're in the eighth grade, or whether you're a kindergarten person. There are goals. Now, children are being directed by their family. So their family also has to be very aware to how the child is being taken care of. Wouldn't you agree?
I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're getting
Yeah.
more and more aware of the way we're raising children. As I remember, my father was like, you do this because I tell you to do it. And
Mm,
now it's like, you should do this because it would be a good idea and this will be the outcome. And you get to learn that rather than do it because I tell you to do it. So
Yeah.
we're evolving the way we teach. I
Yeah,
hope.
we hope so. We
but
hope so.
yeah, I want to kind of focus. There's a part of that you said your focus is also determined by your association, right? Like for instance, in our group, in the Phoenix National Group, business group, we are all focused on growing our business. That's a common cause that we all have. And so we're motivated to that cause, but it's great when you have people who are great in certain areas of business, so because it sharpens your edge of business as well. So it's like, if you have somebody that can point out to you, hey, you're doing this wrong, maybe you need to do it this way, and because they're productive minded, right?
Yeah,
It helps you become productive minded
sure.
Yeah, there's
versus
nothing there's nothing
versus
like doing something wrong for a long time.
right.
You're still doing it wrong. You're not productive. You need that third person to come in and say, what if you just kind of switch that, and change
Right.
everything there. That's why
Sure.
we hire experts to fill in what we're not good at.
Without a doubt.
It changes your whole paradigm, because there are people that have been in the same place for years, right? And running in circles trying to get their business off the ground, per se, right? But because they don't take counsel from somebody who is an expert, or somebody who has done it, or somebody who can help them get to that next level, then they remain stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can be focused, but focused on the wrong thing, and you're that mule that's tied to the rod, that you think you're going, oh man, I've
Well, this
done
is one of,
miles.
this is one of the basis of education, is to really, you learn in groups.
Right.
So, being around other people that can support you and nurture you is going to help you get to where you want to be going. Doing it alone, to live in isolation, is really terrible. I wrote an article, excuse me, but I wrote an article called "Isolation Sucks," because it does.
Mm,
If you think I'm going to do it all by myself and I'm going to be the Lone Ranger, the Lone Ranger even had Tonto. So
true.
you gotta be really careful with that.
Wow.
There's another thing, another question to ask yourself: do you have a routine to guide you?
Mm,
You have to recognize the right bookends to balance your day. Here's what I mean. Sometimes it pays to be predictable. You can't control everything, but applying a routine to your mornings, for example, and evenings can help you handle the chaos in between. Now, these are suggestions, right? Put yourself first, number one. You are often a forgotten item on a mile-long list. Whatever self-care looks like to you, just do it. I try to work out every morning and finish each day by reading in my bed for at least 15 minutes. The working out in the morning is tough for me. But I always say, if I take my dogs out, that's as good a workout as it's going to be for the time being.
mm,
Lately, I've put in my routine to go for a walk around 9 o'clock in the morning for just 20 minutes. And I bring one of the dogs along with me. It's a routine. It's just something that I'm getting into. It's a routine that we want to create a habit out of it. And so this is what works for me. Your routine might look dramatically different. Do you guys have any kind of routine set up for your well-being, or just routines in general? Quiet.
no,
That's the answer right there.
no, actually, I thought Oscar might have wanted to say something, but I think The only way I keep myself balanced is by having a system.
Tell me about that, could you?
Well, so like for instance, in just like in building a car or any building anything, there's a system involved in getting all the parts in and having your checklist in making sure that when you reach Z, you've completed your mission, right? Versus just kind of like grabbing A here, grabbing D, then going for F and then G's somewhere. The chance of forgetting something if you do when you're non-systematic is that by the time you reach, you think you reach Z, O is missing, W,
You're
where did I put W?
you're on the highway, like I don't have a brake pedal.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it sounds like your way of staying focused is to have a system that
Right.
you've developed, that
Absolutely.
you're able to stay on task with.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
I have to the only way I get things done is by simplifying, like saying to myself, what needs to be done today? Because if I don't focus on it like that, I'll start doing things that could be done next week. I mean, I'm working on something, rushing through it like it's due today, when the stuff that's due today is not even being focused on.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's
That's
like
one of those areas of distraction.
right, exactly. Like I don't, the things like you said before, the things I don't want to face, I basically force myself to say, this has to be done. This is my deadline, and this is my timeline for it.
Yeah.
So, and in business, you're both, we're all entrepreneurs here. In business, you have to set your own timeline. You have to say to yourself, this is where I'm starting, this is where I'm ending, and I have to have this done by end of day today. Because you're your own boss.
Yes. And this is why so many people that I counsel and work with in business, they may have a great idea for their business, okay?
Mhm.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to run a business. And running a business is all about setting up systems and having those systems to be duplicated so that eventually the boss doesn't work, in the business. He's working for the business, and he can be anywhere in the world doing that.
Absolutely.
But that's what a system will allow you to do. And that's why, and that's the system is what keeps you focused.
One of the things I read, when people say, yeah, you need to set goals, and they came back saying that's almost a good idea, but set a system in place and reach goals as you go. Because if you just set a goal and you hit it, what's the next step? Like, oh, I hit my goal. Now you have nowhere to go but down. Like they said, when the first astronauts hit the moon and then they came back, it's like, well, now what? We've been to the moon.
Right.
What can we do to top that? So you set a system that you hit intermittent goals along the way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, no, because here, another thing too, if you're going to have growth in your business, you have to have a system that you can train someone else to follow.
Right.
Right. Because if you're going to hire somebody and you just expect them to know what to do, like, okay, all right, now you go ahead. You have no system in place. That person is just going to be confused.
Yes, that is the essence of leadership.
Right.
To be able to create something as a leader in your business, because it is your business.
Because it is your business. Right. And it has to be communicated.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be communicated.
And the other thing has to do with confidence. So another question to ask yourself is, am I ready? Because it's all about confidence. For example, business by its nature, are you ready for the unexpected? You have to hold on to your inner confidence, because you need to believe that whatever the situation arises, you can handle it. Think about that. Whatever the situation is, you can handle it. Confidence keeps you level-headed.
Right.
Keeps you calm, keeps you focused. So here's what you can do about that. Stay positive. Just don't say it, do it. It's like, Nike, just do it. Remind yourself, catch yourself, call yourself out, like you were talking.
Hmm.
Turn into the kind of person that always looks to the silver lining. Notice negativity in others too. It'll show you what you don't want to be doing.
Wow.
And accept the peaks and valleys. It's interesting, particularly in sales. What I find is that there's a 90-day cycle in sales. You put in a lot of energy, and then 90 days from now, you'll start to see the results of that energy.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
part of that is to understand that because you make a sale, you may go into a valley at that point. But it doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that you're in a valley right now. And you can say, oh, I see. I'm going to come out of this. But right now, I'm just sitting in this valley. Again, awareness is really key for running a successful business and for running running your life in general.
Right. Life
Okay?
in general, yeah.
And your personal approach to challenges and how you arrive at solutions is defining your leadership.
Defining your leadership. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, think about it. If you have challenges, right? I got to make payroll, right?
Mhm.
A boss's job is to make sure that everybody gets paid on time. His job is to make sure that the money is coming in. So that leadership is part of the person that's going to get out there and start saying, you know what? I can't necessarily depend on somebody else to be my sales guy. I have to be my sales guy.
Right.
I have to be the one to get on the tape. I can't depend on other people, not in a negative way, but I have to be the one that's going to go out there and generate and beat the drums for my business, and to be able to set the tone for everybody in the company. Be able to say,
And you know what's
what?
funny?
Go ahead.
Yeah, what's funny is the entrepreneur mentality is so different than your school mentality, your job mentality, where you're not allowed to fail in school, you're not allowed to fail at the job, and that will hold you back as an entrepreneur, where you learn from failure. So when you say, yeah, you have to make payroll, these are things that you don't work with every day if you're not the entrepreneur. So
No.
how do you learn that skill
Well,
without thinking, oh my God, I'm a failure, I haven't been able to do this?
but it's in life. I mean, look at it in sports. Nobody hits 1,000% when they're playing baseball. If you hit 3 out of 4, if you hit 3 out of 10 times, you're like considered a major league.
You're a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Right? So
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is you make mistakes because that's where you learn. You learn in the mistakes.
Hmm.
So
Fall forward.
Sorry?
Fall forward is
forward.
one of the.
Yeah. So you can see that also in school. If you're the kind of person that has difficulty remembering certain things, well, guess what? That might not be the best way for you to be getting accepted in school. It could be that you need to find other places where you do the things that you do well, that's
Mhm.
going to highlight your successes, and to recognize, you know what, I'm not that good in certain things. Doesn't mean it's bad. I'm just not that good in certain things.
Well, I have a question for you, Frank.
Go right ahead.
Just in the conversation that we're having, for a person that has ADHD, right?
Yep.
I know you specialize in that.
Right.
And they're having a heart chemically, it's where partly, that's part of the issue. But what is some of the advice that you would give to someone who has that struggle and they want to accomplish a task, but they have a hard time kind of settling in on getting focused on that?
Well, first of all, you have to find out what it is that they're having a tough time focusing in on. I mean, I had a situation with one of my clients right now is that he is having difficulty with, of all things, doing his laundry. He's a young kid. He's maybe 19, and part of what he has to do is to do his own laundry.
Mm.
So he knows exactly what he has to do. He knows exactly when it has to be done, but he just doesn't he just doesn't do it. And
Wow.
then he gets upset with himself to say, what's wrong with me? I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not doing it. What the heck's going on? So what we did is we had to break it down into a system, something that's going to work for him.
Hmm.
So what we did is that I asked him, how long does it normally take for you to do this laundry? And he said, 3 to 4 hours. So he said, I know what I'll do. I'll do it on Saturday, Sunday for like 4 hours. I said, you're never going to do it. Forget
No.
it. Forget it.
Hmm.
So so I said, do you have any other ideas? He says, well, I could do part of it on Saturday and I could do part of it on Sunday. I said, so what's the most draining of it at all? He said, actually doing it. So on Saturday, I said, okay, let's get your calendar out. You're going to make a date with yourself.
Hmm.
Because if you were making a date with somebody else, you'd show up.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
you're going to make a date with yourself. So he said, okay, so from 12 to 2:30, I'm going to do the laundry part of it. And that'll include drying the clothes.
Hmm.
And he said on Sunday, I'll do the folding of the clothes. I said, how long is that going to take? He said, probably, 45 minutes. I said, tack on another half hour because that's
Right.
what you need to do for people with ADD. Tack on another half hour. I said, are you going to watch the football games? He said, yeah. I said, well, take your clothes out, watch the football games and fold them.
Right.
So
See,
and he
I
did
have,
all, and he did all
yeah.
that, and he felt great about it. And it had to do primarily, I said to him, it's not a question that you're bad, it's a question of education.
Hmm.
Nobody ever sat you down and said, how about you do this?
So
That
you
doesn't
help.
work.
So you help people. You help people in the area of accomplishing something.
Sure. If that's what they need at that time, absolutely, yes. Also,
Wow.
I primarily help people with with their mindset, the way they think. You
Hmm.
know, people will come to me and they'll say, I have ADD, it's really, and I'll say, congratulations, you have ADD, that's great. And they'll look at me like I'm not completely out of my mind. And I say, listen, the only thing wrong with having ADD is A, you don't know you have it. And
Hmm.
B, nobody ever set you up with a situation or a system that's going to work for your particular brand.
Wow.
So
Well, and one thing I
let's
do,
try it
because
out. Go
yeah,
ahead.
because
I'm sorry.
I'm ADHD, I'm ADHD, HD, like I said, it's high definition. So if
Right.
you tell me I have like to do your example for the laundry, it's like it's going to take you 2 hours to do the laundry. See that 2 hour block in my head is like, oh my God, that's the whole entire day. So I would break it down as like, so for the first half hour, we're just going to do shirts. And the next half hour, we're going to do pants. So I can break down a 2 hour, job into half-hour intervals where I can focus on. I can keep that focus for the half hour. But if you tell me
Yeah.
the laundry is going to take 2 hours, you might as well, say
Yeah.
it's going to be a month worth of work.
That's fabulous
So
because there is something.
breaking it down even smaller
Yeah.
is a way to to overcome that.
There is something called the Pomodoro method. And the Pomodoro method basically says you take an hour, and out of that hour, you're going to take a 10-minute break. So you do 50 minutes of doing something, and then you do another 10 minutes where you absolutely do something completely different. And you could break it down even further, doing it into half-hour intervals. So you take a half hour, just like you're saying, but after 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break because you want your body to get into its natural rhythm. But that's exactly what you were doing. That's great. If that works for you, that's fantastic.
My issue is normally not an issue. I wouldn't say it's an issue. It's more of
I'd say it's an issue.
is there such a thing as hyper focus?
Yes.
Because is like when once I've set myself to do something, right? It's hard for me to stop and break away because
Mhm.
in myself I develop a slight anxiety about not finishing.
Right. That's
You
interesting
know,
because it's called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's what ADHD is. So you stay so focused, but there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that, you know?
No, no. I mean, but that's how I get things done.
Exactly.
It's like it's like you know, I would feel differently if I was comfortable getting not getting things done. Then you become unreliable.
That's
It's like
true.
now people are like, he never gets anything done anyway, right? So
Why am I going to give this guy anything to do? Right.
right, exactly. Why am I going to? So I mean, it's a good thing in one way and a bad thing in another because sometimes it's just weird. Sometimes you need to be able to break away.
Well, do you embrace the bad? In
Do you
other
mean?
words, do you, like you just said, if I don't get this done,
Hmm.
right, does that produce a lot of stress and anxiety?
Oh yeah, I would say that. I would say that for sure because it's like, for instance, the other night I was supposed to get something done pertaining to the channel, right? The channel that we're going to have on Roku, right? And I mean, I was working on it diligently, throughout the day, along with certain other things, kind of rotating my wheels and systems and things. And the fact that I kept running into obstacles frustrated me because I'm like, that's the thing about having that system. It's like you have the system, you say to yourself, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to finish this by such and such a time. But you start running into these flip flop of issues and, computers, technology
Right.
issues.
Right.
What does Mike Tyson say? Everybody has a good fight until they get hit once. So yeah,
Everybody has, everybody has a great plan
Yeah.
until they get punched in the nose.
Yeah.
It's a
So
great
So it's
line.
like,
It's a great line.
you gotta, well, like, I would have to ask you this, Frank, for the person that has to detach themselves, because let's say things are going so bad, you're working at something and, all the gears aren't lining up, everything doesn't seem to be working. And you have that hyper focus, tendency because you want to get it done. It needs to get done today, right?
Right.
What is your suggestion to a person that's in the maximized in that mode? What's your advice to them?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Say it
So,
again.
like, for instance, like you're so frustrated that you continue hammering away at this thing, but it's not really going anywhere.
Well, you have to basically, I forget who the artist was. Uh, there was a song called "Roll with It." Okay, you
Yeah.
gotta basically and this is the difficult part, when you're so engaged
Hmm.
to be able to say, you know what, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I gotta take a step back here. You know, so one of the ways that you mitigate the stress and the anxiety is you got to change your mindset. You got to shift. And again, we go back to awareness. You have to be aware that you're just beating your head against the wall.
Right.
So so don't fight it because you won't win the fight. You got to growth is uncomfortable. It's
Right.
as simple as that. Like I said, you don't learn anything until you fail it. You got it
True.
right,
True.
and it's a fact. So you got to embrace these aspects of being an entrepreneur or a CEO and use stress as a motivator to propel you. and say, well, I can't really do this. I can't really do. Yeah, you can't really do this. Take a step back and say, okay, now what do I want to do? Because you want your stress level, the amount of anxiety and adrenaline that's running through your system to calm down. If you ever notice that when you get into these hyper states, you can get so hyper you don't know what to do. That's because the amount of adrenaline that's running through your system.
Right.
If you take a step back for like 15, 20 minutes, you'll notice that you calm down and then you can think a little better. Right?
Right.
So
use a breathing technique for that. Also, Lao Tzu in his book, the Tao Te Ching, is be like water. Be able to flow around the rock. Just be able to, like, all right, the rock is coming. I didn't see it around the bend, but there it is. I'm just gonna, flow around it and not try to fight it. It's like,
yes, and the greatest natural energy, the greatest natural, how do I say this? Water is the most destructive over time to move that rock. Just that water going over that rock will make it in slowly into something else completely different. So it's that consistently. See, the amount of anxiety that you have can actually keep you sharp and keep you focused. If you use it with that mindset shift. And you got to take that negative situation and put a positive spin on it. How do I? Go ahead.
No, I find that I think of it like this. Whenever, and this is just an exercise I use for that, because you have everything is energy related, right? And so when you're stressed, that's your body is going through abnormal flow of energy, and your blood flow, everything starts functioning abnormally because now it's in a state of emergency, right?
Right.
Your body's now in a state, so nothing is flowing as it should. Nothing is operating as it should.
Right.
So I think of it as withdrawing your mind from that mental state.
Right.
It's like leaving the room. I'm going to leave the panic room and I'm going to go into a room I'm going to find my happy place.
Yes.
Right? I have to get my body back in a place where it can think clearly. It can function normally.
Yeah.
And therefore I can accomplish more. I can accomplish more in that state of mind than I can trying to figure, in that hyper state.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not really thinking. You're not thinking straight.
You're reacting.
And you're everything is gonna get on your nerves. Nothing ever makes sense.
Yeah, there was this great movie that I think Edward Olmos says. He's the teacher in this barrio school in California. He keeps on saying to these kids, because he's teaching them math and science, he keeps on saying to them, fill the hole. Fill the hole. And they're like, I don't understand what you're talking about. No, fill the hole. Fill the hole. Because he was looking for them to put in there what was missing that they weren't able to be able to see.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Again, we're back to awareness again.
Right.
What is it that I don't know that if I knew would get me to the next place?
That's wow. That's key. That's key.
Yeah.
So
you don't know that you don't know. That's the other
part. That's the other part of the pie. There's the pie, and then you can cut it in half, and you've got on one side you've got what I don't know, and the other side you got what I do know, and in the other part you have what I don't know that I don't know. So that's what Oscar's referring to, because we live in that state. You don't know what you don't know.
So your job, Frank, is to tell us what we don't know that we don't know. So
no,
now
my job is to help you find out what you don't know,
there's a lot that I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know that.
It really depends on what area you're talking about. I mean, if we were talking about I don't know, if we were talking about horseback riding, I wouldn't know a hell of a lot about that. But if we were talking about, let's say, music, and I'm a musician and I write and all the things, and I could give you some advice, but the advice I would give you would be ultimately for you to discover what that is,
Hmm.
not for me to tell you, because telling you doesn't mean anything. Freud once said that when women used to come to him when he started, he knew immediately after 5 minutes what they needed, and he would tell them, "This is what you need to do." They wouldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. So eventually, what happened was that he had to recognize that he had to ask questions to them to find out what it is that they needed to do, and they
I,
had
I
to
had a I had a
discover it themselves. That's called talk therapy.
I had a great professor when I was studying coding for computer programming. I'm like, all right, how do we do this? And he's like, well, what do you think we should do? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, if you did know, what would you do?
Right.
And literally like walked me through
The thinking.
myself
Yeah.
answering the he never once answered the question.
Yeah. That's a
Maybe he
good
just
teacher.
sucked as a teacher. I don't know. But he just never once gave me the answer and just, let's go. Little baby steps. What if
Yeah.
you did know? And what do you think? All right, if from those two choices you came up with, which one of those do you think? And literally I knew the answer, but I didn't know that I knew the answer
Yeah.
because I just like, all right, you give me the answer. Like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Let's
Well, he
go.
was actually
Bring it out.
teaching. He was actually teaching you how to think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? It's surprising how many people in the world don't know how to think.
No, they don't. I, I don't say that in a negative way. They don't know how to ask the questions. They don't know how to
Question.
ask the questions to get to the next place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of that is to be able to say, you know what, I don't know this.
Mhm.
You know, I
Yeah.
don't know it. Maybe I got to
Yeah.
ask somebody about it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not knowing because
No,
all of us
that's
don't
actually
know
high, and
something,
that actually points to high intelligence.
Oh,
right?
if you're
Like, I
married,
don't
you
know.
know that you don't know.
Which leads us to, you need to check yourself. Basically, leave it at the door. Your ego.
Hmm.
You got to recalibrate your thinking and lose your ego.
Hmm.
Right?
That's it.
Learn learn to step out and use it at very specific times. If you were something that was wrong, you need to understand. I got to learn about it and I got to examine it. But falling in love with finding out you were wrong from time to time, you got to fall in love with it.
Wow.
Learn from it and advance. Your ego stands in the way of your personal development. Isn't that the truth? I'm reading that, right? You might not even realize it. You got to let it go. You got to let go of the ego.
Your
And
ego stands in the way
of your personal growth.
of your personal growth.
Yeah.
You know what? Before we, because I know we're closing out, but that is like such a true statement because
Let me add to that because
yeah,
know,
please go ahead.
there's in the Zen practice they say adopt a beginner's mindset. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert mind, there are few. There's always something new to learn, and it can arise at times when you least expect it. If you aren't open-minded, you'll miss amazing opportunities to improve your life in every way. Beginner's mind.
There's mine.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought that.
No. I think
You better wrap it up there. We can't get better than that statement.
yeah, that is like an amazing point. Frank, just tell the folks real quickly, how they can reach you
Sure.
in order for them to be, for you to guide them through this process.
Right.
Because, in order to be successful, and we're talking about the true level of success. Most people think, you get wealthy and that's success. But I know a lot of wealthy people that lost all their money. Because they didn't have the true wealth, right? So, this information you have is is priceless, right? You know, you really, you really can't afford not to have this information. So I would love for the folks out there
Yeah,
to, to
for those
learn more about
people,
that.
yeah, for those people that have enjoyed today and they want to learn more about what we do, and is there a way that I might be able to help them? Very simply, if you're on Facebook, just go to Messenger and messenger me. You can do it as a private
Mhm.
and just say, I'm interested in talking to you. And then I'll get back to them in the message, and it can be private, and we'll set up a time that we can talk.
Okay.
And as far as reaching me here, then I would suggest that you use my email address, which is frank@addcoachinggroup.com. There's another email address, which is Frank Coppola or Coppola 01 at Gmail. But the easy one is frank@addcoachinggroup.com. And then I'll respond to you, and then we continue this conversation, because I think focus is, as you can tell, we can spend hours just talking about this. But the whole idea is you want to be able to grow, and you don't want to be stuck in a place of not knowing and then literally feeling like I'm supposed to know and I'm should know. No, you don't know, period. That's all. We find out. Simple.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Thank
For
you.
all of us who are watching, Oscar, thank you for also being on. And we're going to be going into our next segment of health and wellness for the fall of 2020. Very exciting to have coming on board in a few more minutes will be Chef Via Melissa, and she's going to walk us through some healthy recipes that we can make for our families and for ourselves. So we look forward to that. We will see you all in a few minutes.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you.